Today, I would like to talk about the insidious nature of childhood emotional abuse. And the reason I want to talk about it is because it is not easily understood by most parents, and also in our culture, it is quite normalized. Emotional abuse is not easy to understand, it is not easy to measure, and it can be quite subjective. But it refers to all the behaviors of the parents that makes the child feel worthless, useless, not good enough, and that completely damages the child's sense of self. So let us understand what are the behaviors of parents that comes under emotional abuse. This is when parents continuously nag, criticize, or body shame the child. So telling the child things like, you're not good enough, you can never do it right, look at your nose, or look how fat you are. It also includes withholding love or threatening to withhold love, or isolating the child, like saying to the child that I will not love you if you don't eat this food, or if you're not a good child, I am not going to love you enough, or I will not hug you. It also includes punishing or threatening to punish the child, constantly criticizing the child for everything, including in the child's intelligence, the child's appearance. Also, emotional abuse would include fear-based parenting or social isolation. So constantly telling the child that I will not allow you to play with your friends, or you don't deserve this. So emotional abuse is a quite subtle form of abuse, but the scars of emotional abuse, according to research, run much deeper than even the scars of physical abuse. Research shows that children who have gone through severe emotional abuse in childhood, coupled with other forms of abuse like physical abuse, sexual abuse, or domestic violence, are most likely than others to fall for mental health issues or to suffer from severe depression, anxiety, PTSD, borderline personality disorder, as well as suicide behaviors. In our therapeutic practice, we have seen that adult survivors of childhood abuse oftentimes come with more severe depression than people who do not have emotional abuse. And their therapeutic journey also in overcoming the depression is much slower than the clients who come with no emotional abuse. So emotional abuse is something that we really need to understand and take very seriously as far as our parenting is concerned. There are different ways that children react to emotional abuse. There is one set of children who completely give in or succumbed to all the criticism and nagging and correcting that they have been subject to by their parents. And these are the children who will then believe that they are not good enough, they will suffer from inferiority complex, body image issues, and they will probably spend a lifetime feeling inadequate. They might have social anxiety, they might also have eating disorders related to body image issues, and they will most likely spend a lifetime in hopelessness, helplessness, feeling unworthy, unloved, and unwanted. In fact, more often than not, these kids would, as adults, also succumb to addictive behaviors like alcoholism, drugs, and also might end up self-harming themselves because of the internalized anger. And the other set of kids who have grown up with a lot of emotional abuse like criticism and correction would now react in a completely different way, where they would do everything to prove that they are good enough, which means these are the children who will take in the emotional abuse and criticism, but use it to now become perfectionist, overachievers, people pleasers, or the topper in their academics. And this is how they cope up with the whole feeling of not being good enough. In the initial short-term period, such kids seem to be successful, they seem to be having achieved a lot of things in life, but in the long run, when all this success and achievement comes because of the emotional abuse, then these are the adults who then suffer from a lot of stress, OCD kind of behaviors, extreme anxiety because of that constant need to be on the top. They might also suffer from insecurity and a constant fear of losing it all. So this is how emotional abuse can cause completely polarized behaviors amongst children as adults. children who grow up with highly critical parents oftentimes have their own inner critic that starts developing in them. So these are the children who are continuously hearing their parents or teachers or adults pointing out their faults and criticizing them, and this now creates an inner voice in them, pretty much like their own parents and teachers, which also continues to criticize them long after they are adults. So as adults, they are very critical about themselves, very judgmental, and have very high standards for their own selves. Oftentimes this results in a lot of anger and hatred towards their own self, and a lot of internalized angst, and sometimes this may come out as behaviors that are obsessive compulsive. It may come out as a lot of health issues because of that internalized anger, and it may also come out as perfectionism or a compulsive need to always be right. People who are internally very critical about themselves can also sometimes, indulge in self-harming behaviors. So this is also one of the outcomes of having highly critical parenting and having an inner critic because of that. Remember, when we have at Wellness Space done a research on suicide behaviors and ideation, we find that consistently some of the contributing factors are emotional abuse, emotional neglect, coupled with physical abuse, bullying, and domestic violence. So emotional abuse should not be taken lightly. At the same time, this does not mean that we do not correct or discipline our children, but it should not be done at the cost of harming or damaging their sense of worth or their self-confidence. Remember, we can always discipline children with consistency, compassion, firmness, with adequate structures, without being violent or abusive. I hope this video was helpful, and I hope that as parents you recognize your own emotionally abusive behaviors and understand them and correct them. If you have been a survivor of emotional abuse as a child, and if you are now a parent, there is also likelihood that you might be continuing this pattern of behavior in your own parenting style with your children. So be mindful and happy parenting.